What's up, everyone? I'm going to be showing you some cool tech you can do by rebinding your controls in HellDivers 2. This will give you a hotkey for rebinding your, or for switching the ammo type of your gun. So for something like the Holt, it'd be your primary or secondary. Also let you switch between special rounds inside of the AT cannon. And it will also give you some tech you can do with emotes and generally just kind of improve your control scheme by using some of the interesting interactions this game has. Also show you some cool shit with the car. So we're going to hop in here to mouse and keyboard control, and I have everything set to default right now. For the most part, you can keep everything as it is. It's important I use dive on control and I use stratagems on alt. That's preference. You can keep, you don't have to do that part. But the only other thing we really need to change is going to be, where is it? Over down here in the car section. So in general vehicle, you're going to want to set your honk button to be something, you're going to just change its binding. For some reason there's this issue with the car where F is the horn and the melee button, and it would only do a single beep. If you just rebind these even to the same keys, it should allow you to start holding the horn button down. And so I use mouse 5 for melee. If you have a mouse 4 and 5 button, that's a good option for it. Mouse 5 for melee and mouse 5 for horn. And there's nothing else you really have to rebind on the car itself. And nothing here if you want to rebind like switch seats or anything like that. But over in the mouse and keyboard and then in combat, this is where a lot of the changes are going to happen. So the first thing we want to change is reload. We want to change that to press instead of tap. That way, if you accidentally hold it too long, it won't not be a reload. And that's going to be with how we rework weapon wheel. Interact can stay. Melee, make sure this is set to press and not tap. That's part of the reason the interaction can happen with the weird honking. And also having that be a press function versus a tap function will make it so you won't accidentally not melee because you held the button for slightly too long and it didn't consider it a tap. Change equipment long and short. I recommend unbinding these if you're not, since you're going to be able to just reach the several keys. Unbinding those so it doesn't stop any weird gear changes. Quick throwable can stay as is. Throwable is at 4 by default. You can swap that with backpack item if you want, because you don't really need to be equipping your throwable outside of a few niche cases. Stim can stay as it is. Primary, secondary support, those will stay how they are. Switch aim mode. Now this is the one that's going to make you like aim down sight. Having this bound to something like middle mouse is great. So if you don't have any extra special buttons on your mouse or anything, that's a good one to have. Just as is, make sure again it's set to press. This allows you to like go between shoulder aiming and aim down sight toggle, which is important for the switch camera side function right here. This is one that by default's on mouse 4, and it lets you swap your shoulder while you're aiming and only while you're aiming. And so this function often goes unused because people forget you have it, and it's just clunky with how it's implemented. But one thing to note is that you can't sprint while aiming. So if you set this to a double tap of shift, it allows you to, while you're aiming, if I'm holding shift, or even if I just tap it, nothing happens because you can't sprint while aiming. But while you're aiming, you double tap shift, and now you have a quick and easy way to access your shoulder swap if you don't want to bind it to its own unique key. You can also set this to a single tap function if you don't want it to be the double tap, and just make sure you tap it quick enough. I would want the double tap to avoid any misinputs and shoulder swaps, but that's actually going to be very useful fighting these bugs, being able to shoulder swap reliably and having it on a simple function like that. And since it always defaults back to your right shoulder, you don't have to worry about keeping track of it. So having that set to a single or double tap is amazing. This is the important one. Open weapon wheel. This needs to be bound to its own key. So we're going to set this to a press function on, say, the T key, because that's close to the reload function. And now, since you don't have reload being on a tap versus a hold, you're not going to accidentally hold reload too long and pull up your weapon wheel, or not hold it long enough and before your weapon wheel pops up, or having to wait for your weapon wheel. This is a press function. You can set it to T. If you do use mouse 5 for melee like I do, you can rebind that to F. Weapon wheel up stays, weapon wheel down stays, weapon wheel left. Now what we're going to do with that is we're going to bind that to right click, and then with weapon wheel right, we're going to bind that to T as well, the same button as your open weapon wheel, but you're going to change this to a double press. And everything else here can stay. And what that's going to allow you to do, press the T key once to hold, like, just as soon as you press the T key and start holding it, you will see your weapon wheel pop up instantly. This will be immediately faster than having to hold the R key, so this will give you quick access to your weapon wheel overall, check your ammo, anything like that. And you can keep it on right click if you'd like, but the macro basically that we've created is hold it to pop your weapon wheel up, double tap it to switch your ammo type. So if you do the double tap, it will input both the wheel right and the weapon wheel at the same time, so it cheats a macro into the game essentially. This gives you a single button press to swap between your ammo types. And this even works on things like firing modes on any gun. If we grab a stalwart, same thing. Double tap, double tap, double tap. And if you once you've had the wheel up for a second, you can rapidly double tap to like quickly switch between things like that. Very efficient way. And then with something like the autocannon, you can leave on left click for the weapon wheel right left if you'd like, but I just found it to right for the sake of reaching it easier. And then this is the same kind of idea. You can just press T and right click at the same time, and probably want to press T slightly before, but just T right click in rapid succession to quick swap your type between there. So you have full control of your weapon wheel now. You can see your ammo. You can swap your ammo types on the fly. Amazing for the halt. One thing to note, speaking on tech involving weapon switching, is you can't pull up your weapon wheel while you're aiming. So keep that in mind. You have to stop aiming, and then you'll have, if you were already holding T and you let go, it won't do it. So you want to make sure that you release, double tap. And then one of the reasons it's nice that we've rebound T also is you won't accidentally double swap ammo types. As the wheel is closing, this little closing animation, and you'd press right click before, it might swap you one more time than you wanted to. This now circumvents that, and right clicking will do nothing unless you have something equipped in there, like the autocannon. And then the last thing we're gonna do is show you second to last thing, we're going to show you some cool tech with how like different interactions with the weapon wheel and the functions and how all these things interact with each other for some tech you can do. Melee. There we go. So you can melee while aiming, and you can have your weapon wheel up, but you can't do that while aiming, and you can't melee during your weapon wheel. But you can cancel the melee with a weapon wheel like this. And so what you can do, if say like if you happen to be in flechette mode, and then a like hunter or a stalker jumps on you, you can melee in response to stagger them briefly, and then cancel the melee animation into a weapon swap. So I'm in flechette, melee, stun. And that's how quick you can go from flechette to punching in a stun round. This will save your life against the predator strain stalkers and hunters and make them a non-issue if you're using the halt. And it just lets you be more reliable with different weapon types, especially if you're a person who likes to use the heavy MG, because switching that firing rate is very important. So that's one of the melee techs. You can cancel it like that. Same thing if we... you can also cancel the melee into the kick emote. It's kind of hard to see because it's kind of a weird animation, but you can't, if you do the kick emote, you can't cancel into melee until the entire duration. But if you melee then kick, you can do a 1-2 melee attack. And that is very important, and it's why we've rebound our weapon wheel, or we're going to rebind our emote wheel. So in communication, emote, normally it's bound to a release press and a long press to do it. We're going to change these and split the inputs again. This is now going to be a press function, and you can bind that to whatever key you want. For the emote itself, I actually put a button on my. You can put a button on your mouse, like let's say mouse 4, for example. You can have it on there. And then for Emote Wheel, you're going to set this to be a press function as well. And then I like to set it on tilde. You can set it on whatever you'd like. And then the last thing we're going to do is in controller, you're going to want to ramp these two things up, and this will increase the sensitivity in your radial wheels so you can quickly get to things faster. So you can, now that we've set our weapon wheel to a press function instead of a hold function, see open weapon, we make sure this is set to press. There we go. And so now if we press our emote button, it'll do it instantly. This is more notable if we look at something like that. It'll do it instantly on press instead of on release now. So if you're rapidly trying to kick, for example, you'll get less miss inputs, and you won't accidentally pop up your weapon wheel. And then having weapon wheel do its own unique key lets you immediately switch to whatever one you want, and there's actually some utility to these. Obviously this one makes you raise the flag faster. This is democracy. It's a more aimable melee, because your normal melee doesn't come out on your crosshair, it comes out on your elbow, like the rifle butt of your weapon. So even though my crosshair is here when I melee, the melee hit's going to come out somewhere around here. So when you're meleeing enemies, you want to look up and left severely if you're not aiming, and if you are aiming, just look up and left slightly. So if I were trying to melee that tree, aim something like this. And then if I aim at the tree, aim something like that. This will like punch voteless in the head and let you angle your punch better. But if you combine that with the new kick binding you now have a single press aimable melee attack that can kick bugs in the head and such. And you also have the 1-2 melee attack. And that combines well with, like, 1-2 switch to like pop off a splashette round. But if you look, the weapon wheel can't be popped up during the emote kick, so it has to. You have to make sure you get the timing on that. So you either probably want to do a melee and a swap, or like a 1-2 and then a shot if you're already in stun rounds mode, for example. And then the other interesting tech you can do with that, so that's the kick emote, and raising the sensitivity on a radial menu. Let's just let you flick to which side you have better. The draw emote is basically gunslinger armor for every character. You can you have your normal swap speed, but no matter what weapon you're in, if you start your gunslinger emote, it will equip your secondary instantly. So even though I'm in primary, that's how quick I could fire a stim. And so gunslinger armor's only benefit becomes the reload speed once you learn this, and once you rebound your weapon wheel. This is amazing for stim pistol medic playstyle. Steady aim, not only obviously it steadies your aim and lines up the shot, you can even aim during it. And you can use that to like stim an ally, for example, or if you want to quickly switch to your stim pistol, just look at them and like that. And there is a delay when you start the emote before you can move again, so it's not reliable for switching to your secondary if you're not going to take a shot, so just keep that in mind. But you see a teammate, you just go like this, and then you have your secondary out. But because you can pop it out like this in the middle of your aiming as well, it's not affected by your aiming and whatnot. It also has an interesting interaction with aiming down sights. The game still considers you in the emote during aim down sights. So if you aim with this and then you start the emote, it will cancel you out. It's very bizarre how it works. It also creates this bug where you hold your primary in your right hand like a pistol, and I'm currently firing stims with my shotgun. And then you have to switch back to your shotgun to actually see it. But basically, you do the manual aim down sight input, and then you do the emote, and it will swap your gun and do that weird bug. But you can use this to do a basically a stim pistol snipe with a scoped weapon. So, like that. So if you have something with a scope of some sort and you're in first person and you've lined up the reticle, you can just press the emote and fire, and you will ping at that crosshair shot. So I'm aiming right there. You can't be crouching for it. And then I shot right there. Boom. Now I'm holding my autocannon like a gun, like a pistol. Creates some wild bugs. But it is very useful for stim pistol medic, and just generally swapping to your secondary easier. And then the final thing in terms of emote tech, nothing too crazy, but the raised weapon, if you use the ultimatum, the raised weapon can fire directly above you into the bottom of a Bile Titan, and it will kill it instantly if you're in the middle of their body. It will likely take you out too, but it's an honorable way to go out, and a very stylish way to go out is to just pop the emote and then ping the ultimatum shot up. But there you go. Now you have a binding for quick switching your ammo. You've learned about a little bit of melee stuff and some melee tech and how that works around the weapon wheel. And you've learned about all the goodness, all the weird things I found by rebinding controls. The last thing, a little bonus with the car, now you can hold your horn. Also, C is switch seats. I highly recommend that every player under options gameplay, they disable auto climb during sprint. This will stop you from automatically climbing on the car and the resupply pod when you're sprinting, and now you just use spacebar or whatever your climb button is to manually climb. This will make the car way easier. C to switch seats. Now you can hold your horn, and the last thing is by default the X key will toggle your headlights. That's not actually in the controls. That's just like a little bonus. All right. Have fun, y'all.